That time was considered the dawn of cultivation and martial arts. Many people striving for immortality practiced and perfected their best for the sake of immortality, but among them, there was one person who was the best among the practitioners. This was Ling Xiao. The little girl next to her reported that Lin was so quick to straighten out those bad guys. Lin noticed such a cute little kid. The little girl informed her little sister to be careful, for right behind her were those bad guys. Lin hit them with a lightning bolt and replied that she could just be called Lin. Suddenly, Ling Xiao's master Lin Tanqi appeared. He informed her that he was not good at practicing, so he decided to come to her. He kept telling her that she should focus on her perfection, and then regardless of her qualifications, she would be able to become immortal. Lin replied that she didn't want to become immortal, and asked about what was wrong with just wanting to always follow the master and occasionally punish the bad guys. You know what they say, people envy others, but no one envies an immortal in love. Her favorite person, out of everyone in the world, chose her. Why would she become immortal without him? Lin Tanqi informed her that she was the only one in this world who wished for such a thing. The girl asked the master to wait for her. She didn't need this endless life. She just wanted to live her life shoulder to shoulder and face old age together. Lin had always dreamed of this and was looking forward to this day, the day when her master, her love, would finally become her husband. This dream of just indulging in the scenery of nature and becoming the best couple for a long time to come. To be together, always. The girl asked why on earth would he do such a thing, to which Lin Tanqi replied that if she didn't want to become immortal, it was better to give her power to someone who wanted it. He killed her. Lin had always trusted him. To her, he was the best man in the world. She didn't realize this, and there is his will. Is he really willing to sacrifice her life to become immortal himself? She hated him for his betrayal, but most of all, she hated herself for being so blind. How ridiculous that she is the one who got herself into this situation. She doesn't want to live in this damn world anymore, where there are so many of these sad memories of bygone days. The girl really wanted this day to finally end. She had hoped for it, but fate didn't let her story end so easily. In fact, she was reborn, Her Royal Highness. On this day, the 10th princess of the Oli's empire moved into the Cold Palace. From this day onwards, the people living in the Cold Palace were forbidden to go outside the Cold Palace. The little girl was stretching her arms towards her father and babbling everything. But the father of the Cold Palace only looked at her. The maid turned to His Majesty and said that the little girl was not guilty of anything, and all the more she was his daughter. The king's aide replied that to die in this Cold Palace was the fate of Princess Elsa. The little girl cried. With that, His Majesty turned around and they left the hall. Poor little princess, the daughter of a ruthless father. She was supposed to have a very different story. The little girl opened her eyes and didn't realize if there were people who were as unlucky in life as she was. She threw away her pacifier. She realized that she had actually been reborn from a young, beautiful girl to a little baby. She was an adult. How could she suck on a pacifier then? Even though it was a long time ago, but that scene of their first meeting kept arising in her mind. This story should have belonged to the real Princess Elsa, but because of her rebirth, she had replaced her identity and now had to bear her fate. Becoming a locked-up princess right after birth, she is definitely the most unfortunate princess. The servants came. She turned to Her Majesty and suggested to play a game. They dressed her in a onesie with floor cloths sewn to it and asked her to crawl. The second servant informed her that she didn't think that was a good idea. The little girl thought they wanted too much, for she was not a mop. The servant explained that children like to crawl, so they wouldn't have to mop the floor. The second asked what would happen if Mr. Levi found out. The answer was that he was not in the castle yet, so he wouldn't know. The servants couldn't believe that the baby couldn't crawl. Elsa thought that the two of them were really evil, so she would have liked to try one of her spells on them. But alas, she had almost forgotten that ever since she was reborn in this world and became a child, then her perfection had seemed to evaporate. She had spent so long perfecting herself in her past life, trying so hard only to end up being killed by her master, whom she trusted so much, and reborn as the good-for-nothing Princess Elsa. A servant remarked that Her Majesty was truly useless, for she could not even crawl. The second one said that they should leave it anyway, because they should finish it quickly, and then asked her if she didn't want to go and buy a dress she had seen recently. Elsa thought that to be a princess means to do nothing all day long and live a luxurious life, but she didn't understand why everyone disliked her so much. Even the maids mocked her. The little girl wondered why she was so unhappy. The maid answered that she wanted to buy it, and perhaps she would buy it with the money that was given for the maintenance of the princess. The second servant asked why she was telling the princess, because she didn't understand anything anyway. The little girl didn't understand who told them that she didn't understand anything. She wished the one would stop torturing her cheeks, for it was painful. She begged to be saved. Suddenly the doors to the room opened, and Levi the manager entered. The maids were very much frightened. The little girl, on the other hand, was glad that he had come at last. She stretched her arms toward him. Mr. Levy lifted the little girl up. He said what a good idea to use Her Majesty as a mop and make her crawl on the floor, for it would save them a lot of work. The maids wanted some kind of excuse. Then he suggested they play the game, for it was so interesting. He ordered them from now on to crawl on the floor like children and use their clothes as rags. They dare not stop until they have cleaned the whole palace. If he finds even a sawdust, he will deprive them of their wages for the next 6 months and divert it to buy milk powder for the princess. The maids begged Mr. Levy's forgiveness, for they had been wrong. The little girl noted Levi's good workmanship. He held out the bottle with the words that it was time for her to eat. His name is Levi, and he is in charge of the cold palace. Her late mother always showed him kindness, so he always takes care of her. He is the only one in this castle who genuinely loves the little girl, even though he looks a little scary. Levi said that the princess is so pretty, just like a little sheep, which makes him want to swallow her. The fact that he says such scary phrases makes Levi look like a cannibalistic devil. Elsa is not a favorite child, so for now, because of this, the only person she can trust is Levi. The baby started drinking the milk and was amazed at how good it tasted. Thanks to Levi, she never felt depressed. Her past life was interrupted because of one scumbag, but since she was reborn, she decided to take that chance and will live for herself. Elsa believes that with her ingenuity, even though she is the least favorite princess, she will be able to marry a rich man and live in luxury. Levi patted Her Majesty on the head and explained that she should eat well and always obey him, then she could grow up fast. But then she learned that the word grow is too great a luxury for her, because her beloved father is ready to kill her at any moment. Mr. Levi said that Her Majesty can't grow up to be a lazy pig who always sleeps after eating. It's time to study. All children are like that. He can't call her a pig. Levi used magic to show the little girl her royal majesty. Elsa was glad there was magic in this world. After all, it was at least something. He showed her portraits of the second and third princesses. The little girl was delighted. They were all princesses. Levi explained that they were all sisters of Her Highness and asked the little girl to say the word sister. Elsa tried to say it, but only babbled. He told her that if Her Highness did not study well, she would get mustard milk for dinner. This came as a shock to her as she was still a child. Levi decided to give her another chance. It didn't matter if he knew the word sister, because the important thing was to memorize those 2 words. The portraits appear. This is His Majesty the King and Prince Wasp. This is father and brother. Elsa noticed that with her father's face was as sour as a lemon, but with him he was so sweet. She didn't understand if it was just because he was his only heir. The Ols Empire is a patriarchal country, and only men have the right to inherit the throne. Her father has many children, but Arthur is his only son, and only he can be the heir to the throne. But unfortunately, Arthur was born with a terrible soul curse that could kill him at any moment. The curse was slowly destroying Arthur's life, and if it continued, Arthur would not even live to be 16 years old. Many mages of the Empire tried their best to save the sole heir to the throne, but no one could do it. Elsa didn't think she would become a princess, but even if she did, she was born to save another person's life. She didn't want to just sit there and wait for her death. How cruel are they? She's just a baby. A baby must be sacrificed, but for now she can live in peace, because everyone around her has forgotten she exists. The unfortunate child. The maid asked the little one not to eat everything, for it was all dirty. How much trouble she was in. The maid took that handkerchief and kept nagging why she had to take care of that unclean girl. There's a legend in this empire. A person with ruby eyes has a dark soul and is doomed to suffer, and because she was born with such eyes, people began to call her an unclean child. Because of these eyes, there was a discussion about whether she should be sacrificed. People believed that such a thing could bring bad luck to the empire. Elsa could make a terrible contribution to the future of the empire. The maid said that if she was left alive, she shouldn't even think of interfering with them. Many said that if they used the soul of an unclean child, the prince would also be doomed to misfortune. The ministers were united in two factions. They never made their choice, and the sacrifice was never determined. Thanks to this, Elsa lived to see the day. Mr. Levi asked Her Highness to guess what he brought her. It was an Easter egg, which he thought was suitable for Her Royal Highness. The little girl thought that indeed. It was just another thing that symbolized something auspicious. Now that's sarcasm. Levi explained that if she didn't have things that were auspicious, she wouldn't be able to live long. Optimistic. Levi's always bringing her weird stuff that's supposed to bring her happiness. He wants to give this unclean child some good luck. She appreciates his kindness, but that's just why the garlic was brought. The little girl pressed against that testicle and exhaled, because she didn't understand what good it would do if her fate could not be changed in any way. Her life was still in the hands of this man, the great emperor of this empire. How many times had he soiled his hands in blood for her sake? And as soon as this man decided to make another attempt to save his only heir, the hour of her death would come. But even so what? Because the little girl had been given a chance to be born again, and this time she should live a good life. She decided that nothing if a victim, nothing if an unclean child. In her previous life, she was a cultivator and shouldn't lose those skills for nothing. That's right. She still remembered the refining methods from her previous life. As long as Elsa can cultivate, then she has nothing to fear. By the time her father remembers her, she will be like a high, soaring bird. The little girl confidently got to her feet. Levi immediately noted that she could already stand, which was a sign of good physical fitness. Elsa decided that 10 years would be enough for her to regain her past strength. But the thought crossed her mind, what if her father decided to sacrifice her before she could cultivate? She didn't understand what she should do. Levi noticed the little girl's condition, asked about maybe she was hungry again. He called her a greedy kitten. The little girl wasn't hungry, she just didn't understand. At the same time, in His Highness's, the priest asked the king about going to the palace to see Princess Elsa, and if that could mean that the sacrifice was finally decided. The king looked at him, which made the man flinch. The king answered briefly that no, it is not yet time, but sooner or later that day would come. The key to cultivating immortals is to absorb the aura between heaven and earth. The first practice is to accumulate chi in the body through meditation. As long as she perfects herself with all her heart, then she thinks she can achieve at least 1/3 of the success of her past life. She is confident that she can do it. Elsa doesn't want to sit there idly waiting for the hour of her death. She realizes that she fell asleep while meditating. However, this alien world has no aura at all. Without the aura, she won't be able to regain her strength to the level of immortals. If she couldn't become stronger, she would definitely be sacrificed. The little girl didn't understand why her life was so hard. She cried. The maids came to her crying. She asked Her Majesty why she wouldn't fall asleep and why she cried like that. All because there is no aura in this world. Mustard said that she will bring hot milk for the princess. She doesn't want milk. She wants spiritual strength. Elsa began to cry even harder. The servant thought that the little girl was indeed hungry and asked her to wait a moment. The maid gave her milk and explained that if Her Majesty ate well, she would grow up quickly. The little girl decided that she must grow up to deal with this cruel devil. Time passes very quickly. 5 years have passed, and Elsa is still living in the cold palace. She lived a quiet life, and Sweat forgot about all the problems. except that she could be sacrificed at any moment, but it's simply impossible to forget. The servants were asking the princess to slow down. Looks like the princess really likes flowers. Right now, she's just hoping that her father has forgotten about her. Plants have no spiritual power in this world. She practiced alchemy in her past life. She didn't think she could use this ordinary plant. Really, the little girl wondered if she really should try it just in case she succeeded. Elsa decided to give it a try. She must try everything that could help her fight this terrible emperor. The maid said that since the princess loves flowers, they should gather more of them and put them in the palace. To which the other replied that it's been 5 years since the princess was sent to the cold palace and His Majesty has never visited her. The princess is so cute, he misses a lot. His Majesty is called a ruthless killer king, though he is considered the savior of their empire, but still, he did kill his older brother for that purpose after all. He spared no one from his family. Many people with royal blood were executed. To say the least, even his own children are worthless to him. The second maid agreed, because this cruel man decided to sacrifice his daughter. He's horrible. The first one asked her to be quiet and keep quiet because she might lose her head for this. Elsa decided that she should avoid this bloodthirsty demon. There was no way she was going to meet him. At least, not before she could cultivate normally. The little girl noticed the flower. She couldn't believe that there was polyling in this world, this flower. Polyling is a basic element in alchemy. The princess didn't think there was such a treasure growing near her palace. She ran up to the fence and wanted to pluck it, but her arms were too short. Then she decided she should climb over the fence. Elsa succeeded. She was glad that this child's body was giving her some advantage. She came to them, her friends. The maids reported that it was almost bedtime. One of them turned to the princess and informed her that they should go back to the palace already, or Mr. Levi would be scolded. But just then, they noticed that the princess was no longer around. They began to discuss whether she could have gone there, to the forbidden place. They didn't realize that no one had told her that she would be punished if she went there. This is bad. The princess is in danger. They ran to tell Mr. Levi. The garden is the most forbidden place in the palace. The emperor has forbidden anyone to enter that garden. Anyone who didn't know this and accidentally entered the gardens was sentenced to death there. No one knows why the emperor treasures that garden so much, but everyone knew that to enter the garden meant certain death. The little girl kept picking these flowers. After all, they are fine material, so she needs to pick more. A shadow appeared from behind the little girl, and a voice was heard announcing that his garden. It was the emperor. He asked who let the outsiders in there. This sent Elsa into shock. The emperor asked if it wasn't the girl who was locked up in the cold palace. Her intuition told her that the man standing in front of her was her father, the emperor of the Ola's empire in this world. He asked her again what she was doing in his garden. He said it was his garden. She herself had come to meet her death. The emperor asked that she dared to pick these flowers or what. What insolence! It was over. She would be killed. The little girl smiled and pushed her father to turn away. She explained that he couldn't look at it without her permission. The little girl quickly ran off into the bushes and did something there. This perplexed the father. He decided that he would first see what she wanted to do, and then decide what to do with her. Suddenly, Mr. Levi appeared. He addressed the emperor and said that he was the steward entrusted with the cold palace and admitted that it was entirely his fault for not looking after the princess. Levi indicated that he was willing to take responsibility. Only he asked that he be allowed to return the princess to the palace. The little girl turned to His Majesty and informed him that it was ready. She held out a wreath on her head, of those flowers, and said that it was a gift for her father in honor of their first meeting. These words about her father touched the king very deeply. The little girl went on to say that she had finally met her daddy and was very happy, for she had been waiting to meet him. She hugged his leg and explained that she had a special feeling in the morning and thought she would see her daddy, so she decided to make a present for him. But he showed up too early, and the present wasn't ready yet, but Elsa was still very happy. Her Majesty noticed that even Levi came to see them. It's the first time she's seen him so nervous. It looks like she has worse problems than she thought. But the little girl has already given him such a gift and even called him daddy. It's not like he's going to kill her right this moment. The king asks why she did such a useless thing. She wants to punch him so badly. He pulled his hand towards her, and the little girl was already starting to think what he wanted to do, maybe hit her, but she didn't do anything. Elsa was trembling. He just flicked the leaves off her. He informed her that she was too dirty, didn't look like a princess at all. She didn't realize he had done that. The little girl replied that she would obey her daddy and not get dirty anymore. Mr. Levi asked the king for permission to take the princess to the palace to wash her. Well done. Mr. Levi quickly got her out of the creepy garden. His Majesty asked them to wait. He asked her if she knew what the flowers stood for before making a wreath out of them, to which Elsa replied that no, she did not. It's over. It's over. She didn't understand what he wanted to do, for she noticed his murderous look. The king informed her that she was the first person to enter who would not be executed. She couldn't believe she'd escaped. Levi asked if she would run away again like she did this time because she was probably scared. Elsa replied that she wouldn't do it again, but just before leaving, His Majesty asked Levi to bring the princess to his palace the next day. They were shocked. Elsa already thought that her father would not let her go tomorrow and she would die there. Levi asked what dress she wanted to wear to meet His Majesty. The little girl chose. The one she would be cold in and the other one she just didn't like. Levi informed her that if she was going to be cold, they should wear something warmer. Next day, Imperial Palace. There was simply no escaping things like next day. Elsa didn't know what to do. Could she try playing the cute child again? After all, it worked last time. What if it didn't work this time? Levi noticed how nervous the little girl was. He said that the last time he walked down this corridor, he accompanied Her Majesty to meet the Emperor. The little girl asked that it was her mother. Yes, Her Majesty was incredibly brave and beautiful. She was undoubtedly the most beautiful rose in this palace. Although the rose had withered, it still managed to sow small seeds in this world. Now, all of her subordinates are eagerly waiting for that seed to turn into an even more beautiful rose. This seed should definitely also grow into a strong and brave rose. Elsa realized that he was right, and she should be strong and brave. No matter what happened, she would not give up. They came to the Emperor. He saw Levi carrying the little girl in his arms and asked about her being so weak that she was unable to walk on her own or what. He thought she was too spoiled. As soon as she heard this, she immediately jumped out of Levi's arms. She explained that she just wanted to see her daddy, so she asked Levi to carry her because his legs are so long and he walks very fast. She mustn't provoke him too much. She must try to please him. But then the little girl added that Daddy's legs were longer. That made Levi pout. Levi didn't understand why a chill ran down her spine. Levi said that Princess Elsa had a history lesson at 6 p.m., so he hoped His Majesty would have the princess back at the palace by then. The Emperor asked about the man's decision to put conditions on him, or what it was, to which Levi replied that he dare not. The little girl asked her father not to scold Levi. She explained that Levi said that if she studied a lot, she could become as smart as her daddy, so she liked going to class and didn't want to be late. The Emperor just got up from his seat. He informed that as long as she is there, she shouldn't be so impatient. Levi just knows she only said those words because she was worried about him. She mentally apologized to him, for this was the first and last time she had ever offended him. Baby can't let Levi wait too long. She must return safely. They sat at the table. It was so quiet. If you look closely, the man is handsome enough. Too bad he's a real devil. Elsa didn't understand what he was looking at. She noticed those plants. Their stems are crossed. They seem to be the flowers she gave him yesterday. He planted them in a vase. The little girl realized that he really cared about those flowers. She really didn't understand what they meant. Yesterday, she had broken into his garden and plucked his flowers. Elsa was really nearing her end. It looked like he wanted to set her punishment. But suddenly the servants started bringing sweets. This surprised the little girl a little. It seems like he only called her over to have tea with him so he wouldn't blame her or what. But no, it was still a punishment for her. All the sweets stood closer to the emperor. She wondered if he had any conscience at all, if he would eat it all himself right in front of his daughter. How could he be so cruel? It was too much. The emperor asked permission to tell her the story. The little girl replied that she loves to hear stories. She has some ominous guesses. There is a legend that Zeus, king of the gods, had 2 children born on the same day. They grew up together, but then one of the brothers died in an accident. After his death, the second of the brothers went to ask his father, hoping to resurrect him. But Zeus replied that the only way to resurrect his brother was to give him his life. The emperor asked if she were in that boy's shoes, what would she choose? He so simply asks her if she is willing to sacrifice her life like that boy. He expects her to say how great it is. In the king's eyes, the Zeus of the story is him, and that boy who sacrificed his life for his brother is her. Of the 2 twins, only one will survive. He wants her to willingly give her life to her brother. But it is only to her that the realization comes that he is letting her choose. But isn't her fate already predetermined? Will everything go smoothly if she reveals her true thoughts to him? The little girl replied that if she was Zeus, she wouldn't let her son sacrifice himself. If Zeus was as powerful as her daddy, he would be sure to protect both of his children. Then the Obama boy would have been able to live happily with each other. She added that only a fool would choose one of the children. Personally, she wished for both. He did not understand to whom she was saying this for a fool. Levi told her that they can live in peace and tranquility because of their daddy who protects their country. So Elsa believes that as long as they have a daddy, they can all be happy and never be apart. When Elsa grows up, OA will also become as strong as daddy to protect him and her baby brother. His Majesty just kept quiet and listened to her. All seemed to be well. He informed her that it seems Levi is too brave or even crazy since he taught her such flattering words. He seemed pleased to hear that. She shouldn't let an opportunity like this go to waste. While he's in such a good mood, the little girl should take the initiative. Elsa jumped from her seat and ran up to her father. She started smiling broadly at him. Her father asked what she was doing. The little girl replied that she was hungry and asked her father to feed her a cake. He doesn't dare tease her with cakes. She is so cute, and he can't do that to her. She thought about the fact that maybe if she seemed cute to him, he might not want to sacrifice her. The emperor smiled and held out a piece of cake to his daughter. She gobbled down that slice with great pleasure. It was so delicious. Her palace doesn't have such delicious cakes. Although it's natural, he is the emperor after all. He is given the best. The little girl thanked her father. He asked about her sweet tooth after all. All those things were for the little girl. She was happy. He added that she could go back to her place once she had eaten everything. There were so many desserts, and she was only 5 years old. Even if she were an adult, it would be impossible to eat it all. She wondered if he meant she couldn't leave until she ate it all or what. He would kill her if she didn't eat it all. She thought that was too cruel. It's inhumane. Elsa tried to forget all of this and just do the best she could. She didn't understand why she was having such bad luck. After a while, Elsa finally finished everything. She barely left the room. Levi was still waiting for her, so she should find him soon. Suddenly, the boy reported, ruby eyes but for some reason pink hair. He jumped off the statue and landed beside Elsa. He asked if she was the girl they decided to sacrifice for him or what. He informed that they finally got to meet her. This boy looks to be her age, but he is allowed to walk freely around the palace. Elsa kept wondering if it could mean that. But suddenly his toy flew to her head. The boy laughed at her because he had succeeded the first time. He added that the prince himself was talking to her, so she should tell him who she was and what she was doing there. It was her twin brother she was thinking of. He's the first prince of this country, the twin brother who will be given her life in the future, because sacrifice is the only way to save him. How did she not realize they look so much alike? The emperor's only son, the only heir to the throne who is on the verge of life and death. The first prince is the only thing the king cares about, so from the moment he was born, everyone tried to please him. The only thing is that Arthur grew up a spoiled child, and because of that, he became the main headache of the palace. He approached her and asked if she was listening to him. She was unlucky again if, after escaping from the Devil King, she ran into the Devil Prince. The little girl greeted His Highness, the first Prince of Arthur. Arthur announced that he realized what the ruby-eyed girl from the legend looked like. He took her cheeks and began to pull her. His brother embraced that they actually look quite beautiful. They aren't as scary as adults say. This bear really deserves its reputation. She won't put up with another demon. He should take into account that she's going to re-educate him. Wasp's mom showed up. She asked him about why he ran away. That concubine isn't as fast as he is. She noticed Princess Elsa and asked when she had time to grow up like that. This woman is Princess Hersa. Although Wasp called her mom, she is not their biological mother. Their mother died shortly after they were born, and Princess Hersa became Wasp's stepmother. Among His Majesty's many concubines, Princess Hersa was considered the kindest, most gentle and caring. She herself asked to entrust her with the care of the prince, and the emperor did not refuse her request. She took him with her, and Elsa, the sinister child who could not be allowed to come near the heir, was abandoned in the cold palace. For this reason, she had never seen her twin brother before. Elsa greeted the princess and informed her that she was delighted to meet her ladyship, except that she was completely ignored. Hersa asked Arthur if he wanted to have tea after lunch. They could go right that minute if he wanted. Arthur is the only one who exists for her. She didn't pay any attention to the little girl at all. She was already used to this cold attitude. Judging by her demeanor, she can't call those rumors said about her true. The little girl informed that since Her Highness wanted to spend the afternoon with a cup of tea, she would not disturb them. It seems to her that nothing good will happen if she stays near this prince. Arthur asked her to wait for a moment. He informed her that he had changed his mind about the tea. He wanted Elsa to play with him. The little girl didn't understand why she had to play with this bear. Wasp suggested that she kneel down and he would ride her. His father had told him that the unicorn from one legend just had a pink mane. Elsa would be his unicorn. He's a horse, his whole family's horses except for her. He has no idea who she is. She was the best in the cultivation world. He had a duty to respect her. She didn't realize that he really thought she would pretend to be a horse for him. It's too insulting. He's just like a real bear cub. If you don't raise him while he's little, then he'll grow up and things will get much worse. If she allows him such idiocy now, he will never stop. Princess Gersa announced that she would let Elsa play with Arthur for a while. She is his sister, but still, where is it seen that a brother talks his sister down? She asked if Elsa knew how much His Majesty treasures his son. The little girl has no idea how angry he would be if he saw his son sad. Hersa asked the little girl about the fact that she didn't want to make her father angry after all. This came as a shock to the princess. She wants to say that the little girl is obligated to obey his silly demands or what. If Elsa offends Wasp, her father will definitely hasten the day of her sacrifice and then she won't be able to escape death. This girl looks like a kind angel, but underneath the cute exterior she hides her horns. If Wasp becomes grossed, she will surely go to the emperor. In this situation, Elsa can't stand idly by. She is the first to grab Asa's hand and offer him to go with her. They ran away from the princess. Hersa asked about where she was taking Asa, to which the little girl replied that she would take care of him and not to worry. Hersa thought about the fact that Elsa is just an abandoned evil child. Sooner or later, her life will be at Hersa's mercy. If she risked getting Asa on her side, Hersa wouldn't sit still. Asa asked, what weren't they going to play horseplay, and where is she taking him? Elsa asked what was the fun of just riding. She asked him to follow his sister to have some real fun. She guaranteed that he would enjoy it. He didn't understand why she had brought him there, and where were the funny things she was talking about. Elsa told her brother not to worry, for she would show him everything. She pulled out some sort of handkerchief and tossed it up. It was very beautiful, which Wasp noted. Elsa said that it was not all. She snapped her fingers and butterflies appeared from that handkerchief. Arthur was so delighted by this. He wondered if it was magic or what. It worked. Fortunately, she had made a thorough investigation about that child earlier. Since Arthur had a curse on him, he was very weak and sickly. The mages used magical powers to put a magical barrier on Arthur and temporarily protect his life. Because of this, Arthur was fascinated by magic. He began to frequently sneak to the pre-war mages to watch them train. He spent a lot of effort studying magic, and this only proved how eager he was to learn how to cast magic. That way you don't have to follow his silly commands to please him. Just showing him something magical is enough. But she doesn't know how to conjure, and what she showed him was just a little trick. All she needed was one prop, a handkerchief with butterflies on it. In fact, she had long ago assumed that if she met Osei, she would be in trouble for a long time, so she started to prepare for the meeting in advance. Elsa had often used this trick in her past life to reassure her children. She asked her brother about how he liked her magic. After all, it was much more interesting than playing pony. Elsa grabbed her sister's hand. She asked what was wrong. Why did he call her sister all of a sudden? It was kind of unfamiliar to the little girl. He asked her to teach him magic. He wants to learn magic very badly. Elsa replied that he wouldn't be able to do it. Wasp asked why. The little girl explained that learning magic takes a lot of perseverance. She didn't think he could do it. She will not teach him magic. Her brother replied that she should believe in him and he could do it all. Then she suggested he try it. First, he should run 3 laps around this garden. If he can't do that, it will be proof that he can't learn magic. She really can't teach Arthur even this small trick because the Emperor has forbidden him to learn magic. She doesn't dare to go against the devil, and even more so, his sister doesn't possess any magic. Arthur asked his sister not to worry, for he could definitely do it. It really worked. She didn't think her little brother would turn out to be so naive. Elsa tried to forget about it. Exercise like this was good for his health. She asked him not to be in too much of a hurry and to run slowly, and to remember to tell her when he was done. And then added that he didn't say anything about it to anyone since other people shouldn't know anything. Wasp replied that he would certainly not let her down. In that garden came Princess Hersa. As soon as she saw Elsa running away, she was alarmed. After a while, Wasp dropped down on the grass and announced that he was finally finished. That's what the princess saw. She ran up to the boy and asked about what had happened. Arthur replied that he was running because his little sister said that if he ran 3 laps around the garden, she would agree to teach him magic. Only now did he realize that he had broken his promise. He informed her that he had tricked her. They were just playing catch-up. After a while, the boy sat in his stepmother's arms and reported that he was so tired. Arthur decided that next time he would definitely go to his little sister's house to study magic. Princess Gersa thought how that girl dared to be so brazen as to bully her little Arthur. She decided that next time she would definitely have to put her in her place. At this time at the princess. It had been a really nerve-wracking day for her, but she was finally able to go back and rest. Levi reported that she had been with His Majesty all day and missed class. Levi is the man who was on bended knee the whole time. Before class starts, she has to tell him everything that happened. After a while, Levi informed her that she was delayed so much because she met Prince Arthur. He asked if the king was really angry because she had broken into his garden. He threatened her that if it turned out that she had lied and skipped class for no good reason, he would double her homework. The little girl said that she had lied to him because Daddy had fed her cake and later made her eat the whole thing. Levi asked that this man actually did such a thing. It's unbelievable. Levi, he must have been really worried about her now to have that reaction to what she said. Luckily, everything went well. However, for some reason, she feels that Levi is hostile towards her father. Is it just her imagination, or did something really happen between them in the past? She spent the rest of the evening studying, but her day didn't end there. Originally, it was a small flower garden, but now it is her secret place where she practices alone. The gardener allowed her to use this place as her secret base, in exchange for tending to the flowers growing there. Elsa decided to try to recreate alchemy in this world, so she brought a lot of different utensils that could help her with that. It's so much easier that way. If someone finds all that stuff there, they'll just think they were playing tea party. She should be able to do well. After all, she was a master alchemist in her past life. But even so, she hadn't gotten any positive results yet. It wasn't possible to create Dan from ordinary herbs. If she had those flowers, maybe it would have worked out. But here, though her father had let her go then, You could tell from the look in his eyes that they were very important to him. The little girl thought that if she took them, her father would get really mad at her. Elsa looked at her notebook and crossed out the options for salvation. Alchemy didn't work either. Now she didn't even know what she should do. It was starting to rain. The little girl decided to forget it, since it was useless to worry about it for now. It was so cold out there. From the moment she was born in this world, she knew that her fate would not be easy, but she still did not give up. But now the little girl is troubled by the thought of whether such a weak child can change her fate. Maybe she should just give up and wait for the day to be sacrificed. Elsa has already begun to wonder if the matches will answer her. Who in the palace will give her even a little hope that she can survive? The match lit, and the emperor appeared. He went into the flower garden and asked what she was doing there all alone. Elsa was a little confused. The little girl answered that she loves flowers, and recently her gardener uncle taught her how to plant them. She wanted to come to the flowers, but she didn't think she would be trapped in the rain. She can't tell him the truth. His Majesty asked that not only does her daughter look so much like her, but she likes the same things as her, or what? This surprised Elsa very much. He lifted the little girl in his arms. He said that first they would take her to her palace, for the night was not the time for children's games. She didn't understand what her father said then, and why he decided to help her. Did he hate her? The subordinate said that they had discussed a great number of important issues with the ministers, so he should come to his castle soon and rest, and the princess could be taken to the castle by his subordinates. He shouldn't have to worry about someone like that. The emperor just looked at him. He understood the look and apologized. He explained that he said it because he was worried. They left the building and the little girl coughed, but when she opened her eyes, she saw her father's magic. He'd made a weather dome. It was very warm. That's how they got to the carriage. The howling wind suddenly stopped and she felt cold, for she was soaked to the skin. Suddenly the emperor covered the little girl with a warm cloak. She thanked her father for it. This cloak is warm. It kept her father's warmth. Elsa didn't understand why he was so kind to her. Maybe he is worried that the sacrifice for the prince will die of cold. The princess looked toward Ozd and noticed that he had fallen asleep so quickly. She had heard that her father often worked late into the night. Perhaps he was just exhausted. Being the ruler of such a huge country must be very tiring. The little girl reached her hand out to her father. This man could kill her at any moment for the sake of his country. But when she looks at him like this, the fear disappears and only pity remains. He doesn't seem so dangerous when he's asleep. Elsa put her hand to her father's cheek, but as soon as she took it away, she saw the mark of her own hand. The little girl didn't understand how it could have happened that she had soiled him. She must have gotten dirty when she was trying to cultivate, and now she'd gotten her hands all over this tyrant's face. She thought that as soon as he found out, he would order her to hurry up and punish the damn girl. She thought that if he saw that she had soiled his face, she'd be ruined. She didn't realize what reason she already had to finish her off. Elsa reached up to wipe it off, but her father grabbed her by the handle. She didn't know what to say to him. He announced that they had arrived. The princess immediately turned away and added that they had, finally. The emperor lifted her into his arms and informed her that she was home. Mr. Levy did not understand why the princess was with his majesty. Elsa thought she was home at last. Riding in the same carriage with him was so dangerous, but luckily he had fallen asleep and hadn't seen the mark on his face yet. She hoped that she and he would not meet again soon. Levi greeted his majesty and the princess. The emperor placed the princess in Levi's hands with the help of magic. He informed that he should not leave the princess unattended. The emperor forgives him this time, but they will all have to take her more seriously from now on. Levi reported that he had made a terrible mistake. The little girl sharply shouted the word "Daddy" and thanked him for bringing her home. The emperor smiled and walked away. Elsa blushed a little. In his room, his majesty remembered his daughter touching him. It made him smile. Last night, the little girl had persuaded her daddy not to touch Levi, but for some reason she felt so guilty, so she decided it was worth apologizing to Levi. Suddenly, a servant came to the princess's room and said that everything is very bad, because yesterday, after His Majesty brought the princess, he got sick with a terrible feeling. The servants want to question the princess about what happened. Elsa asked again about Papa being ill, what his illness was and what was wrong with him now. Levi came into her room and asked the princess not to worry, for he had been told about her illness. It was nothing serious. This upset the little girl a little. She realized that even an insignificant illness should not be treated carelessly. She wondered if it was because he had come to see her. Levi said that instead of worrying about someone else, she should start worrying about herself, since she had been visited. The great wizard Kazan, as soon as he saw the princess, told her that she was so slow and he had to wait so long for her. He inquired of her about the fact that didn't she know what crime she had committed? Elsa couldn't understand this really great wizard. Every child in the Empire knows that the power of the Empire mostly depends on the level of mages in the Empire. The mages not only use their power to make people's lives more comfortable, but also help the king to expand the territory. Among them, there is one mage with outstanding achievements. He is not only the most powerful mage in the Empire, but also the king's first minister, and has a very high power and status in the Empire. She didn't understand why such a great man came to see her personally. Kazan had used magic. The handcuffs were now on the princess's hands. Kazan turned to the princess and informed her that after an investigation by their royal wizards, it was revealed that she had met with His Majesty last night. They suspect that the king's illness is linked to her. Elsa explained that it may have happened when her father was taking her to her palace. It was quite cold and it was raining. The little girl wants to visit him later. Kazan, hearing her explanation, replied that it was absurd, for how could His Majesty, the ruler of their country, have fallen ill from a common cold? This angered the princess a little. The wizard informed her that although she lived in this palace, no one had forgotten that she was a sinister child who brought misfortune. His Majesty is surely infected by her evil spirit. She has condemned him to a painful disease. Levi was not thrilled by the mage's words. Elsa doesn't deny that she made her father sick, but she doesn't see how it has anything to do with being called a sinister child. Such a great mage, and she believes in some superstition. Kazan went on to say that already the entire harem and everyone in the castle is aware of His Majesty's condition. Many of them want the culprit of the king's illness to be severely punished, but the great imperial concubine is so magnanimous that she decided to spare the princess. Everyone just hopes that Elsa will obey the prohibition to see His Majesty in the future. And since the princess is still young and foolish, that the Lord has sent him to her to handcuff her with those handcuffs for safety. If she decides to break the ban, the handcuffs will start to tighten until they break her stockings. It turned out that Kazan did not come here of his own free will, but a great wizard obeys a common concubine, and this is punishment. They just want to lock her up in the walls of the cold palace or something. Cauldron said that he wouldn't have even looked towards the cold palace if it wasn't for the mistress. That was the end of it. Suddenly Levi decided to speak to the High Mage. He informed him that it had been a long time since they had seen each other. Kazan reported that the concubine had also mentioned him. He had not taken care of His Majesty yesterday, and he was also responsible for the incident. But the mistress had spared him. He will just have half a year's salary deducted. Levi reported that it looks like he just did not raise the princess well. He thanked that he is helping to teach the princess the norms of behavior. He had traveled such a long way to this cold palace that he must be tired. That's when Levi offered him the black tea he had prepared and asked him to enjoy it. This surprised the little girl very much, for it was not like Levi. Cauldron too wondered if it was tea to make him feel good or what. But he still drank it, for his mouth was dry while he was talking. As soon as he tasted the tea, he spat it out. The wizard asked what was wrong with the tea and why it was so salty and spicy. Levi smilingly replied that His Excellency, the Great Wizard, only drinks tea of the highest quality, and in their humble cold palace there was no such tea. Levi went on to say that the tea he had just drunk was an old tea brewed with the addition of pickled bacon found in the pantry. Although it was a little moldy, it could still be added to the tea. The little one laughed. Cauldron asked how he, petty servant, dared to give him tea with mold on it. He explained that obviously they couldn't provide anything else. Every year, too few supplies are allocated to the cold palace, and the best is set aside for the princess, so they have to give the guests what is left, even if she is treated like a curse. In his eyes, she is the most important host, and he won't let anyone harm her. Levi used magic and broke the handcuffs. He explained that his magical shackles were useless if a simple servant like him could break them. If the head concubine found out about his negligence, she would definitely not like it. Cauldron was shocked. The babe swooped down on the mage and informed him that what a horror, and he should hurry up and enchant her again. He screamed as soon as the babe touched him that she didn't touch him and called her a damn girl. Cauldron asked what were the two of them, master and servant, conspiring to mess with him or what. This is disgusting. The mage started using magic, and Levi was also at the ready to protect her. Suddenly the emperor appeared and ordered the magician to stop. All three of them greeted his majesty. The emperor asked what they were doing there. Kazan never thought the king would come to a cold palace. He decided it was impossible for him to find out that the first concubine had decided to massacre the princess. The wizard replied that this lowlife was passing by the cold palace and decided to check on the princess. And now he and the butler were showing Her Highness a trick or two. Now that's absurd, shameless magician. Kazan had a feeling then the emperor didn't believe him. It seems that he really couldn't be fooled. The mage said that he remembered that he had other things to do, so he wouldn't bother them anymore and asked them to excuse him. He couldn't believe that they dared to bully him. They would wait for more. As soon as the mage left the room, the little girl ran up to her daddy and asked why he wasn't resting, for she had heard that he wasn't feeling well. The emperor asked her to take her to her room. Elsa couldn't believe what he said. Her father was already heading towards her room. The princess asked her daddy to wait for her. They were already sitting in her room. The little girl turned to her father and already wanted to head towards him. He took her hand and saw the redness on her wrist. He asked if Kazan had done it. Elsa thought that maybe he realized that someone was going to hurt her and came there despite being sick. At this point, the question arises. She used to think he was a heartless, cruel man, but because of their recent encounters, her opinion had changed. She didn't understand why he was so caring. Maybe because she's the sacrifice that will save his heir, or maybe because she's his daughter. Levi walked into their room and asked him to excuse him. Levi noticed that the emperor was holding the little girl's hand. She already had a feeling that Levi didn't like Daddy. It seems that he does. Papa seemed to reciprocate. Levi served them tea and asked him to take his time. Elsa realized it was very similar to black tea. She didn't realize it wasn't the same tea as before, the salty and spicy old tea. Elsa already imagined Levi pouring this tea and saying that His Majesty should try this great tea with marinated bacon. She imagined her father spitting out that tea and being angry that he was asking how dare they serve him that, the butler being sent to the border, and the princess being sacrificed. Her fantasy was what shocked the little girl. He slapped his father on the shoulder with thoughts of not drinking. The tea splashed a little. This she didn't think of somehow. An idea came to her and she hugged her father. The little girl asked her father to let her give him a massage. Levi was shocked. He put the cup on the table. This scared the princess a little. Elsa turned to Levi and asked him to put that tea away because she was going to give her daddy a massage. He agreed. Levi put that tea away and left the room. He drank that tea. He rarely brews such fine tea, the emperor could taste it first. It is such a waste, and so he decided that he would have to teach the princess about saving money. The little girl crumpled shoulders and apologized for it being her fault that he was sick when he came back with her. Since she was the reason Daddy got sick, she needed to apologize good and proper. Elsa turned to her father and informed him that he should stay there and rest. And since Levi had taught her how to make oatmeal, so she asked him to let her make it. After a while, the emperor informed her that this was enough. He lifted her up in his arms. He informed her that her eyes were the same as hers. The little girl asked, "What is he talking about, Mommy?" The emperor replied that her mommy, she too massaged his shoulders a lot like her here. The little girl wondered if she reminded her father of her mother. The father replied that, as he thought, his sad memories came back to life at the sight of his daughter. Elsa asked if he was leaving or what. She didn't understand why Dad was suddenly so upset. Maybe it was because she asked about Mom. The princess turned to Levi and asked why Daddy looked so upset when he remembered Mommy. Was Mommy a bad person? Levi crouched down on his knee and replied that this was not true, for her mother was a very kind and gentle person. If she hadn't helped him, he would probably be dead by now. But the Emperor had left Elsa to die. It was all his fault. At first, the little girl thought she could improve her relationship with her father a little. At least she hopes that now he wouldn't have sacrificed her for her brother. But their relationship never improved. Now she thinks that not only does she have a bad relationship with her father, but she has also managed to hurt other people as well. Things are getting worse. Elsa thinks that she must have pissed off the head concubine because of the incident with Arthur, and she sent someone to teach her a lesson. She managed to convince Arthur this time, but if they meet again, he'll make her teach him magic, and when he finds out she doesn't know any magic, he'll get angry too. The anger of that couple, her brother and his stepmother, she will be in huge trouble. Cultivating it is impossible. She can't leave this palace anymore. She's been beaten by that little demon. Elsa doesn't know any magic. How could she meet him face to face? She realized that there is no cultivation in this world, but she can still become strong by studying magic. By then, she would have a chance to escape from the castle. She didn't understand how she couldn't think of that. Suddenly, a dark shadow appeared above the little girl. She didn't know what it was or where it was coming from, but someone caught her and took her away from that demon, the dark shadow. That guy asked if she was okay and if she was hurt. That kid had just saved her. Levi often read her fairy tales of beautiful princesses and their knights. Whenever the princess was in trouble, her knight, framed in golden light, would come to her rescue. It seemed to her that it was just another fiction to attract the attention of children. It turns out there was some truth to fairy tales after all. She didn't understand why she couldn't take her eyes off him. The boy also thought that this girl's eyes were so beautiful, they looked like precious rubies. He set her on the floor and apologized for being too rude. He introduced himself to her as an apprentice mage named Blair. She asked him to get up faster. He was surprised that Her Majesty wanted to personally help him up. Elsa grabbed him by his jacket and explained that now was not the time to talk. They needed to run away quickly. The shadow demon was chasing them again. Blair saw why they were running and told the princess that they didn't have to run, because he could handle it. He began to recite a spell that completely engulfed the demon. Elsa noticed that his magic was so powerful. That magic turned the demon into a cute beast. Blair went up to it and apologized if he scared it and wanted to pet it, but the beast bit him. He asked him not to be afraid, because it wouldn't hurt him. He hugged him. Blair apologized to him for making him suffer. Elsa remarked that he was so kind. Suddenly, Kazan's voice was heard, calling Blair and asking him where he was hanging around. But the great wizard noticed Elsa and asked why she was there. Kazan began to say how much it hurt, and how his buttock hurt. Elsa asked what happened to the uncle because it seemed that he had a little swelling there. He explained that it was because of her. After his return, His Majesty sent guards after him. His fearsome 2-meter-tall knights took a whip as thick as his arm and began to beat him. As soon as he thinks about it, the pain reappears. His words struck the little girl. She wondered if the father emperor had found out that this type had hurt her and punished him. Kazan reflected that he was a great mage, and how could he let everyone around him know that he had been whipped on the emperor's orders? Seeing this girl, he couldn't keep his mouth shut. He turned to Blair and told him to give him the demon immediately, for he would not allow something like that to live in the palace. The boy immediately began to explain that the teacher had misunderstood, for he was very obedient. Cauldron replied that there was no such thing. The beast began to growl at Kazan's teacher, to which he asked in what way he was obedient. The knight who had arrived with Kazan turned to Blair and explained that he had summoned the demon while practicing soul magic, and had been ordered to get rid of it immediately, but he had left it behind and hidden it. Elsa was surprised to hear that he had summoned this demon. Kazan added that luckily they had discovered it in time, but the moment they decided to capture it, it had raised a ruckus in the academy, and it was all Blair's fault. The boy explained that he had indeed summoned it, and that he was responsible, but that they shouldn't attack everyone indiscriminately, and the demon was very docile. Kazan informed him that this is all ridiculous. Guarding is their mission as mages, whether it be self-defense or intentional guarding. They must eliminate anything that could harm the imperial family, and Blair, as his best apprentice, must stick to that path. A man like Blair who can summon such a creature is not worthy of being a wizard, and he might even be expelled from the magical academy. The little girl informed him that mages are so weak. They should think about the fact that many mages had been beaten by the little beast, and compared to him, this little brother not only defeated it himself, but also captured it. She pointed at Blair. The knight replied that this guy had been practicing soul magic since he was a child. Surely he would be able to tame a demon, and there was no way they would practice such nasty black magic. Elsa said that this little brother not only protected her, but also knew that he was fully responsible for this beast. Compared to them, he was much stronger, and then she asked them if they were the ones who should be expelled from the Magic Academy. Cauldron thought that this girl is only 5 years old, but she is quite smart. He recognizes that this kid is very talented, but this demon is dangerous. If he continues to protect it, he will have to leave. As a great mage, he can't let something like this stay in the palace. The princess asked if he was really dangerous. She spoke before him in the language of monsters, and asked that he was a lion after all, if she was not mistaken. That monster asked who she was and why she could speak the language of monsters, as she thought it was not a demon, but a common monster. They were common in the world from her past life. The monster jumped towards her. She thinks this cub was summoned from that world. In her past life, she'd learned the language out of boredom, but she didn't think she'd need it. Blair noted that she was actually talking to him. So amazing. Cauldron thought, even he can't understand what this beast is talking about. But the damn girl can. She's cursed, for sure she's cursed. The monster asked her that she was also from Panel, and also a cultivator, to which the little girl replied that she was, but her soul was trapped in this princess's body while he was summoned through magic. He asked for her help as everyone around him for some reason calls him a demon and wants to kill him. All he did was attack them and run away. Elsa replied that she understands, but the more he resists, the more they will fear and want to kill him. She added that even though this boy was the one who had summoned him, she didn't think he had hurt him. So, if he continued to rampage, it would bring him a lot of trouble. The monster asked her what he should do since he doesn't want to die. The princess informed him that she would handle it. He should relax. Elsa approached Blair. He asked what was wrong. She has something to discuss with him. After a while, the princess informed that she had 2 pieces of news to announce to them. She decided that from now on, this beast would be the princess's pet, and on top of that, she was appointing Blair as her personal knight, and no one would be allowed to challenge her decision. Cauldron and that knight were shocked.